The professor gives the Cubs another strong start out of the rotation, but unfortunately, the Cubs can't do anything with it. The offense goes dead once again, and the Cubs fall to the Giants 5-1. They've now lost both games to start the series in San Francisco and dropped to a season high or low 6 games under 500 in the first year of the Craig Counsell era. That and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in the comments section, vent with us, talk about this team and just how frustrating they've been. But for now, here is your invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale on Twitter at ant_Pasquale3. It's a late night on the West Coast, almost midnight for us here in Chicago Central Time, watching the Cubs drop yet another game, this time a 5-1 loss to the San Francisco Giants. They put 2 runs on Kyle Hendricks early in the second inning. The Cubs answered in the top of the third with 1 run. The rest of the game went scoreless until the bottom of the 8th when the Giants tagged Colton Brewer for 3 runs and took a 4-run lead, which they rode to victory 5-1. There's a lot of different talking points to get into, but we'll start with the Cubs starter, Kyle Hendricks, his second game back into the rotation, coincidentally also against the Giants, and he turned in another strong outing. This time around, 7 innings, gave up 5 hits, 2 earned runs, just 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. That, of course, on the heels of his last start against the Giants when he pitched into the 6th with a no-hitter and exited with 8 strikeouts. So he's done fairly well against the Giants since coming back into the rotation. That's 12 2/3 innings pitched, just 3 earned runs, which has dropped his ERA that's once stood above 10 to a season low 6.87 for Hendricks. So he's moving in the right direction. This entire Cubs rotation has been outstanding. We've talked about Imanaga, obviously had the one blow-up start against the Mets last week, but he's been a mainstay in the Cy Young and Rookie of the Year talks. Justin Steele has been on an insane stretch for a little over a month now, returning to ace form. Javier Assad has an ERA below 3. Jamison Tyone has been excellent. And then some collection of Ben Brown, Hayden Wesneski, whoever it has been in the Cubs rotation, has been really good too. And now Hendricks, who started the season with his fair share of struggles. We won't sugarcoat it. He was probably the worst pitcher in baseball for about a month. Went on the injured list, figured some things out, came back in a bullpen fashion and was effective, showed the Cubs enough that he could be the guy that they turn to in the starting rotation when they need somebody. Ben Brown and Jordan Wicks both get hit like back-to-back and take hits on the injured list. Ben Brown with a neck and Jordan Wicks with his oblique, I believe. Hendricks slides right back into the rotation and gives the Cubs 2 very strong starts. But unfortunately, the Cubs couldn't do anything with it as they drop another game by the score of 5-1. And it's because more of the same from this Cubs offense. Now, yesterday and today's game were a great example. Yesterday, you have this Cubs team. They put 4 runs up on the board early, but they squander a lot of chances. They have a ton of traffic on the base paths. They don't come away with the big hit, and they end up losing 5-4 because the bullpen blows the game. That's like option 1 for losses. The Cubs leave a lot of chances out there, hope that the bullpen can lock the door, and they don't, and they lose a close one. Then you have the option like today, another strong start from your starter, but the offense has just given him nothing. Oh, maybe you exit down 1 or down 2, and then you turn it over to the bullpen, who obviously balloons that lead into a 4 or 5 run lead, and you still lose, only putting up 0, 1, or 2 runs because your offense can't get anything going. It's the age and battle this season. Is the offense more of an issue, or is the bullpen more of an issue? And the bullpen has blown countless games. This one doesn't count as the bullpen blowing it. The offense didn't score enough for the bullpen to have anything to blow. And I think that has happened far more frequently than the bullpen blowing games. And the issue is the fact that both of those things are happening, and the Cubs just can't find a way to just win a normal baseball game. Either the offense is just good enough and they hang on barely, or the offense is okay and the bullpen blows it, or the offense gives you nothing and the Cubs can't come away with a win. Unfortunately, I have to lean toward the offense being a little bit bigger of an issue for this reason. Your bullpen guys, they come and go. That can change by next week. It can change by next year. You can go out and sign guys. It could change so quickly. Bullpens are so volatile. This hitting, this lineup, only one guy, Cody Bellinger, and that's if he decides to opt out, won't be back next year. All of these issues you got to deal with for the next 5-6 years. Dansby Swanson's under contract. Ian Happ, Nico Horner, Seiya Suzuki, Morel's pre-arbitration, Michael Busch, like all these guys they're all secure. These are all pieces that you once viewed as future pieces. Now they're all question marks. And unless you extremely blow up this roster, this is what I said to my brother. I've never seen a team rebuild because they have a bad bullpen. A team rebuilds because they have a bad team, and that team is filled through 1 through 9 of underachieving offensive players. That's what the Cubs have right now. And the worst part is they have no trade clauses, guaranteed contracts. They got to pay these guys, and they're not performing. To me, that's a bigger concern because the concerns that you have now are going to exist next year on opening day because all these guys will be back. And that's the part that's scary, and that makes me think that Jed Hoyer's job might be on the hot seat because he invested a lot of money and a lot of time into these guys. And if they continue to go down this road of mediocrity offensively, it's going to set the Cubs back another 5 years in their hopes to contend. So I know that's about as dark as you've ever heard me get on the show. I'm usually the optimism, positive type of guy, but it's super unnerving to look at this team and see how lifeless they play top to bottom in that lineup day after day after day, and to watch a manager that we're paying top dollar not do anything about it. I think a lot of us owe David Ross an apology because he at least got more out of these guys. It's essentially the same team, and David Ross took us within one game of a playoff spot, and it looks like Craig Counsell is going to take us to a trade deadline sell-off. Now, it's not all on him. Obviously, the players are underachieving, and Jed Hoyer didn't do enough to improve last year's team. But the fact of the matter is we can't keep losing games like this. Every single day is the same, and every single day hurts the same. The Cubs are now a season high or low, not sure what you'd call it, 6 games below 500. Now 10 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers for first place in the NL Central. The thing that's so frustrating to me is, like, you look on the other side of town, the White Sox, probably the worst team in baseball. You look at their roster and you'd be like, yeah, obviously there's no talent on this roster. You look at the Cubs team, you're like, man, they should be way better. Why aren't they better? And we go into it. The offense doesn't show up. The bullpen blows games. But on paper, this team should be much better than a last place team. But instead, they've been the only team better than the White Sox, or the only team as good as the White Sox for about the last month, 45 days. I actually think they have the worst record in baseball over the last month, which is just unacceptable. The fans deserve better. We deserve better. The players, the front office, the managing, coaching staff, there's so many different avenues to point to for blame. But the fact of the matter is the Cubs need to put W's in the win column, and they're just not doing that. The bullpen has been historically bad, 17 blown saves. So I want to ask, are there any answers to this bullpen? And I'm looking at the AAA, and there's 4 guys there on your screen that I think could be difference makers. Hunter Bigge, he's not currently on the 40-man roster, but once the Cubs got rid of Carl Edwards Jr., he kind of became the closer for AAA Iowa. And in 9 games, he's got 14 strikeouts and an ERA below 1. He's turned into kind of a lockdown closer for them. So I wonder if he's a guy the Cubs might look to eventually in this bullpen. Ethan Roberts, he is on the 40-man roster, has a 0 ERA in 15 games in AAA. He's obviously coming back from an injury that has sidelined him for the last year and a half. So they're taking it easy with him, but he's a guy who can definitely come up to the big leagues and get outs once he's ready. I hope that day is coming sooner rather than later. And then Daniel Palencia, obviously been up and down this season. He's an interesting name. Unbelievable stuff. He's the only guy that has what I would call high octane stuff. You saw Duvall close that game tonight against the Cubs. 102-mile-per-hour cutters that nobody can put the ball in play against. That's what the Cubs need in the back end of the bullpen. Jim Deshaies said it yesterday when the Cubs blew that lead and blew the save, was that in these situations, you really wish you had a guy that could come in and keep the ball out of play. All the Cubs bullpen relies on contact outs. And when they're also walking guys and you have first and second contact, ball in play, those are bad. It could be sac flies, bloop singles, bunts. And as you've seen the Cubs lose games over and over again by those, paper cuts that add up into these big gaping holes, having a guy like Palencia, if he's able to just mow guys down, Mason Miller, if the Cubs could trade for him, or Duvall, like you saw yesterday for the Giants, or today for the Giants, I should say, just blowing the ball by guys. That's something that Daniel Palencia can do. And he's back from injury, pitching with AAA. He had a scoreless inning today. Fastball at 100, 101. That's the type of guy you want in your bullpen. So hopefully he shows the Cubs enough signs that he's able to command his other pitches and could potentially come back to the big league soon. And then Michael Arias, a guy who has shot up from AA to AAA this season, also on the 40-man roster, former infielder turned into a pitcher. And he's been pitching very well with AAA Iowa. I'm looking for his stats right now, but I can't seem to find him on the list here. But he's been really good so far. Only a couple appearances as he just got the call up from Tennessee to AAA. But Michael Arias, I know Mix talked about him. That's another guy who could be coming up potentially soon to save this bullpen, or at least help it, because day after day, it's Drew Smiley, it's Colton Brewer, it's Mark Leiter Jr. before he was hurt, it's Hayden Wesneski, it's Luke Little, Keegan Thompson, whoever it is, they're all giving up runs. Hector Neris, Edward Alzolay, the list goes on and on. So I don't think anybody in AAA could be that much worse than what they're getting. And, sometimes you just need change, and sometimes change works. So we'll keep an eye on that. Here's an interesting note, too. Canario was in the news today. Tommy Birch, the excellent reporter for the Des Moines Register, covers the AAA Cubs, reported that Canario was on his way to San Francisco to get called up. He actually was on his way to Chicago to get checked out by the doctors for that injury that he had last week. But he's back in the AAA lineup, homered yesterday, homered tonight. So he's looking good. A guy that the Cubs could certainly use his power up on the big league level. Always has reminded me a little bit of Jorge Soler, who's obviously on the Giants. Canario, big time pop, not super polished in the outfield, but a guy you definitely want to get in the lineup when you can. So we'll see if his call up is coming potentially sooner rather than later. But the Cubs play tomorrow, 8:45 p.m. Central, another late one. And it looks like the Cubs are going to go with a bullpen day. They decided to push Shota Imanaga back. He'll start the series finale on Thursday. Game 3 is going to be TBD against Hayden Birdsong, who's, I believe, making his season debut against the Cubs. So typically, we see guys make debuts, or guys with 5.6 ERAs come in and look like Cy Young Award winners. So I expect nothing less from Birdsong against the Cubs, and a bullpen day obviously sounds scary, but we'll see. Maybe we'll see a heavy dose of Smiley and Keegan Thompson early would be my guess. Hector Neris hasn't pitched in a while. I'm sure he'd go, and potentially maybe a roster move or two before the game, whether they try to address some offense with Canario or Davis, or if they try to address the bullpen with one of those 4 names I just posted up there. But thank you guys, as always, so much for joining us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like I said, jump in that comment section, vent with us, talk to us, ask us any questions you have about this team. We'll try to get to all of them and answer them as best we can. But unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of answers and not a whole lot of words to describe just how bad this stretch of baseball has been for the Chicago Cubs. But make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell, and we will talk to you guys soon, to hopefully after a Cubs win. Unfortunately, not the case tonight. Go Cubs.